When tech billionaire Elon Musk walked into an Austin nursing home for a routine facility inspection, he never expected to hear a familiar voice humming an old South African lullaby. The woman in the corner, his childhood nanny who'd been missing for 40 years, was about to reveal secrets that would shake him to his core. But nothing could prepare him for what she'd been hiding all these years, or how it would change everything he thought he knew about his past. The February morning air in Austin felt crisp against Elon Musk's face as he stepped out of his Tesla Cybertruck. He squinted at the modest brick building before him, Oak Ridge Senior Living Center. It wasn't like him to handle these inspections personally, but something about designing care facilities for aging Tesla employees seemed to demand his attention. "Mr. Musk, welcome to Oak Ridge," said Dr. Jennifer Chen, the facility director, extending a firm handshake. "We're honored you're considering us for your employee wellness program." Elon nodded, already scanning the exterior with his engineers. "Aye. The solar panel array needs optimization. You could increase energy efficiency by 30% with a simple repositioning." Dr. Chen smiled knowingly. Even when evaluating care facilities, Elon Musk couldn't resist spotting improvements. "Please, follow me. I'll show you our different care levels." They walked through the main lobby, where residents played cards and watched morning television. The smell of coffee mixed with something medicinal. Not unpleasant, just institutional. Elon observed the wheelchair accessibility, the lighting, the way staff interacted with residents. Everything needed to meet the highest standards for his people. "Our basic assisted living is here on the first floor," Dr. Chen explained, leading him past a sunny common room. "The second floor houses residents needing more medical support, and the third floor is our memory care unit." "I'd like to see the memory care section," Elon said. He'd watched his grandmother struggle with dementia years ago. Understanding how facilities handled cognitive decline mattered deeply to him. As they climbed the stairs, Dr. Chen chatted about occupancy rates and staff-to-resident ratios. Elon half-listened, mentally calculating the costs of replicating this facility near Tesla's factory. They reached the third floor, and she swiped her badge to unlock the security door. "Memory care requires special protocols," she explained. "Many residents wander, so we keep these doors locked for their safety." The hallway was painted in soft blues and greens, colors supposedly calming for dementia patients. Elon followed. Dr. Chen passed several rooms, glimpsing residents in various stages of care. Some sat quietly in wheelchairs, others engaged in simple activities with staff. They paused outside a multi-purpose room where residents were participating in music therapy. Through the window, Elon could see several elderly people sitting in a circle, some clapping along weakly to a guitar. "Music often reaches patients when other things don't," Dr. Chen observed. "Familiar songs can trigger memories." That's when he heard it. A melody floating from the corner of the room. Not the guitar, but someone humming. The tune stopped him, cold. It was a lullaby, African in rhythm, with Spanish words. His mind raced back through decades. "Duerme mi niño, duerme ya." The voice continued, soft and wavering. Elon pressed closer to the window. An elderly Hispanic woman sat in a blue armchair, eyes closed, humming and rocking slightly. Her hair was silver now, pulled back in a neat bun. Deep wrinkles lined her brown face, but something about her posture, the way she held her hands. "Who is that woman?" he asked abruptly. Dr. Chen followed his gaze. "Mrs. Martinez, Rosa Martinez. She's been with us for 3 years. Early-stage dementia, but she has good days and bad days." The lullaby continued, and suddenly Elon was 7 years old again, lying in his bed in Pretoria. The same voice singing the same song. The same gentle hands smoothing his blankets. "I need to go in there," he said. "Of course. The music session will end in a few minutes." But Elon was already moving toward the door. Dr. Chen hurried after him, slightly flustered by the deviation from her planned tour. Inside the room, Elon approached the circle quietly. The music therapist glanced up, recognizing him immediately, but maintaining her professional composure. Other residents barely noticed the interruption, lost in their own worlds. Rosa continued humming, eyes still closed. Elon sat in an empty chair next to her, heart pounding. Up close, he could see the liver spots on her hands, the way her fingers moved as if playing an invisible piano. She'd done that when she read him stories, always fidgeting, always moving. The therapist finished her song and announced a short break. As the room filled with gentle chatter, Rosa opened her eyes. They were cloudy now, aged, but still the same warm brown he remembered. She looked at him blankly at first, then tilted her head, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Do I know you?" she asked in accented English. Her voice was raspier now, but unmistakable. "Rosa!" Elon's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Rosa, it's me, Elon." She studied his face more intently. Her eyes widened slowly, like clouds parting to reveal sun. "Elon?" She reached out a trembling hand to touch his face. "Little Elon? But you're all grown up now." "Yes, Rosa. It's really me." Tears gathered in her eyes. "You were such a small boy, always asking questions, always building things." She paused, confusion flickering across her features. "But how? Where is your mother? And your father?" "I came here alone," Elon said gently. "I'm visiting this place for work." "Work?" She smiled, and for a moment, the years fell away. "Of course. You were always so smart. Are you still building?" "Rockets?" Elon startled. Yes, actually, I am." "I knew you would." Rosa nodded with certainty. "Even when you were small, lying in bed with your books about space. I knew." She gripped his hand tighter. "I never forgot you, Elon. Never." Around them, other residents and staff had begun to notice the emotional reunion. Dr. Chen approached. Discreetly, but Elon waved her back. "Rosa, what happened? Why did you leave us?" Her expression changed, a shadow crossing her face. She glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. "Your father," she whispered. "He fired me, told me never to contact your family again." Her eyes darted away, then back to his face. "But there's something you need to know about your father. Something I should have told your mother." She trailed off, her grip on his hand tightening painfully. Dr. Chen moved closer now, concern evident on her face. "Mrs. Martinez, is everything all right? Perhaps we should—" "No," Rosa said firmly, her voice gaining unexpected strength. "I waited 40 years to tell someone. Elon needs to know." She turned back to him, tears now flowing freely down her weathered cheeks. "I saw things, little one, in your father's office, papers and meetings with men who scared me. I tried to protect you from it all." "Rosa, what are you talking about?" She started to speak. Then her eyes grew unfocused. The moment of clarity was fading like morning mist. "The emerald mine," she murmured. "The contracts. They weren't legal. I found the papers. Your father said if I ever told anyone." She shuddered. Dr. Chen stepped forward. "Mr. Musk, I think we should let Mrs. Martinez rest now." These intense conversations can be exhausting for dementia patients. Elon looked between Rosa and the doctor, frustration and concern warring within him. Rosa's eyes were already growing distant again, but she held his hand in a death grip. "Don't leave me again," she pleaded, suddenly sounding like a lost child herself. "Please, Elon. I have so much to tell you." "I won't leave you, Rosa," he promised, his throat tight. "I'll come back. We'll talk more." As staff gently helped Rosa to her feet for her afternoon medication, she looked back at him one more time. "The necklace?" she called out, her voice fading. "Did you keep the necklace I gave you?" Then she was being led away, and Elon sat alone in the music room, surrounded by the ghosts of unfinished songs and unspoken secrets. His mind reeled with questions, each one spinning into two more. Dr. Chen placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Mr. Musk, would you like to continue the tour?" Elon stood slowly, still processing what had just happened. His nanny from childhood, found by pure chance in a memory care facility. Stories about his father that he'd never heard. And that haunting question about a necklace that suddenly felt impossibly important. "Actually," he said, pulling out his phone, "I need to make some calls. We'll reschedule the rest of the tour." As he walked back toward the exit, past the locked doors and security checkpoints, one thought echoed in his mind. After all these years, Rosa had never forgotten him. And now, he desperately needed to know what else she remembered, especially about his father and those illegal contracts she'd mentioned. The February air felt different when he stepped outside, colder somehow, as if Rosa's words had shifted something fundamental about his understanding of his childhood. His phone buzzed with messages. Tesla board members, SpaceX engineers, the usual avalanche of decisions waiting for him. But, for the first time in years, Elon Musk ignored them all. There were more important things to discover than rocket trajectories or production quotas. There was Rosa, and whatever secrets she'd been carrying alone for 4 decades. Elon sat in his truck for 20 minutes before driving away from Oak Ridge, his hands gripping the steering wheel. Rosa's face kept floating before his eyes, older now, but still somehow achingly familiar. The way she'd recognized him, the pure joy in her eyes, followed by that strange fear when she mentioned his father. He drove back to the temporary Austin facility housing SpaceX operations while they developed Starbase. The January afternoon, traffic barely registered as his mind raced through childhood memories he'd buried long ago. Rosa had been more than a nanny. She'd been his refuge. The next morning, Elon arrived at Oak Ridge exactly when visiting hours began. This time, he'd cleared his schedule. No board meetings, no engineering reviews, just Rosa and whatever truths she held. Dr. Chen met him in the lobby, looking somewhat surprised. "Mr. Musk, I didn't expect you back so soon. I need to speak with Rosa again. Is she having a good day?" "Actually, yes. She's been quite alert this morning. But please remember, dementia patients can fade quickly. Don't push too hard if she becomes confused." Elon found Rosa in the garden courtyard, sitting on a wooden bench facing dead winter rose bushes. She wore a blue cardigan and had a cup of lukewarm tea beside her. When he approached, she looked up and smiled immediately. "Elon, I knew you'd come back." Her voice was stronger today, clearer. "Sit with me, mijo." The Spanish endearment hit him like a physical wave. He sat beside her, noting how small she seemed now compared to his childhood memories. "Rosa, yesterday you mentioned something about my father. About illegal contracts?" Her face clouded immediately. She glanced around the courtyard, even though they were alone except for a maintenance worker trimming hedges across the garden. "Your father was not a good man," she said quietly. "But you knew that, didn't you? Even as a child." Elon nodded slowly. His relationship with his father had always been complicated. Distant at best, hostile at worst. Elon Musk had been controlling, dismissive, often cruel, but illegal activities. "Tell me what you saw, Rosa." She sipped her tea, gathering courage. "I was cleaning his office. He thought I couldn't read English well, but I could. Papers on his desk, contracts for selling stones, emeralds, but the signatures were wrong. Forged. Forged how? Names of men who died in mining accidents. Their families never got money they were owed. Your father was selling their share of the mine claims." Rosa's hands trembled as she set down her cup. "When I asked him about it, he was very angry." "Is that why he fired you?" "No." She shook, her head sadly. "That happened later, after I saw him hitting you." Elon froze. He'd forgotten that incident, or maybe blocked it out. Suddenly, he was 8 years old again, standing in the kitchen, his father's hand raised because he'd broken an expensive vase. "You stepped between us," Rosa continued, her voice soft with memory. "You told him if he hit you again, you'd call the police. You were so brave, so small. I don't remember you being there. Because afterward, when your father left for work, you cried. I held you, and you made me promise never to tell anyone, even your mother. You said you could handle him. Yourself." Elon felt something crack inside his chest. He remembered crying, but not Rosa's arms around him. Not the safety he must have felt. "The next week, your father fired me," Rosa said. "He told your mother I'd been stealing money. She cried when she had to let me go. I never got to say goodbye to you properly. Why didn't you tell her the truth about what you saw?" Rosa's eyes filled with tears. "He threatened me. Said if I told anyone about the emerald contracts or about him hitting you, he'd make sure I was deported back to Mexico. I had no legal status then. No way to fight him." Elon stood abruptly and paced to the edge of the courtyard. How many pieces of his childhood had been shaped by his father's cruelty? How many people had protected him while paying a terrible price? "Rosa, why didn't you try to contact us later? When I was older." "I did try," she said, reaching into her cardigan pocket. She pulled out a worn address book, pages yellow with age. "I wrote letters. So many letters. But I never knew your new address after your parents separated. I sent them to your old house, but they all came back." She flipped through the pages, showing him addresses scratched out, updated, scratched out again. "I followed your news, you know. Tesla, SpaceX. I was so proud. But how do you reach someone who changes the world? How does an old nanny contact a billionaire? You could have tried social media, or, at my age, with my English." She laughed gently. "Besides, I wasn't sure you'd want to remember. Your father told me you'd forgotten me completely, that children always forget their nannies." Elon knelt beside her bench, taking her weathered hands in his. "I never forgot you, Rosa. I blocked out so much from that time. I thought forgetting would make it easier." "And did it?" "No." The admission came easier than expected. "I think it just made me angrier." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. A mockingbird sang from somewhere above them, and Elon noticed how the winter sun caught the silver in Rosa's hair. "Rosa, you mentioned a necklace yesterday." "What necklace?" Her face brightened. "Oh, you really don't remember?" She reached into her other pocket and pulled out a small silver locket on a delicate chain. "I gave this to you before I left." It was my mother's. I wanted you to have something to remember me by." Elon stared at the locket, a memory surfacing, like a bubble from deep water. Yes, he'd hidden it under his mattress for years, afraid his father would find it and throw it away. "I think I still have it," he said slowly. "At my mother's house, in a box of childhood things." Rosa pressed the locket into his palm. "Take this one. It has a picture inside." With clumsy fingers, Elon opened the tiny clasp. Inside was a faded photograph. A much younger Rosa holding a small boy with wild blonde hair and suspicious eyes. Both were smiling at whoever held the camera. "Your mother took that picture," Rosa said, "the day before I left. I kept it all these years." Elon's throat tightened. He'd spent so much of his life running forward, building the future, that he'd forgotten there were people who'd helped him along the way. People who'd loved him before he'd earned anything. "I have to ask you something difficult," he said finally. "About the Emerald contracts. Do you remember any names? Any details that could be verified?" Rosa's eyes grew distant, focusing on something past his shoulder. "There was a man, Roberto Silva. He visited your father's office many times, always late at night, when your mother was asleep." "What did they discuss?" "Money. Moving money. And threats." She shuddered. "Silva scared me. He had dead eyes. He told your father that loose ends needed to be handled. Did you ever hear them mention specific people? Mine workers who died?" "The Masango family," Rosa said without hesitation. 3 brothers killed in a cave collapse. Your father had bought their mining rights for almost nothing the week before. They died. Roberto Silva had handled the paperwork. Elon's mind was already racing, thinking about private investigators, legal implications, statute of limitations. But looking at Rosa's tired face, he pushed those thoughts aside. "You've carried these secrets alone for so long," he said softly. "Not alone anymore," Rosa replied, patting his hand. "Now you know. And maybe that's why we found each other again. So I could finally tell someone who would understand. Someone who could do something about it." A nurse appeared at the courtyard entrance, signaling medication time. Rosa rose unsteadily, and Elon helped her to her feet. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asked. "Every day," he promised. "Until we've remembered everything together." As the nurse guided Rosa inside, she looked back at him one more time. "The truth about your father, it goes deeper than emerald contracts, Elon. There's something else. Something that happened right before I left." "What are you talking about?" But Rosa was already being led away, her moment of clarity fading like morning fog. She called back, weakly, "Ask your mother about the fire. Ask her why she moved you all to Canada so quickly after I left." Elon stood alone in the courtyard, the silver locket heavy in his palm. How many more secrets were buried in his past? And why did he have the feeling that Rosa's dismissal had been just the beginning of something much larger? His phone buzzed insistently in his pocket, but he didn't reach for it. For the first time in years, Tesla and SpaceX could wait. There were darker truths to uncover, and a debt to repay to an old woman who'd protected him at the cost of her own security. Rosa had sacrificed everything to keep his father's secrets from destroying their family. Now it was Elon's turn to make sure her sacrifice hadn't been in vain. The drive from Austin to Los Angeles gave Elon 13 hours to think. He'd made the decision in Rosa's courtyard, standing there with her silver locket warm in his palm. Whatever secrets his father had buried, whatever Rosa had seen, He needed the whole truth. And that truth might be buried in his childhood belongings at his mother's house. He arrived at May Musk's pristine Beverly Hills home just after midnight. The security system recognized his voice immediately. "Mom, it's Elon. Sorry for the late arrival." May opened the door in her silk pajamas, reading glasses perched on her nose. "Elon? What on earth brings you here at this hour?" "I found Rosa, Mom. Rosa Martinez." May's face went through a cascade of emotions. Confusion, recognition, then something he couldn't quite identify. Sadness? Fear? Rosa? Where? How? In a nursing home in Austin. She has dementia now. Elon followed his mother into the familiar kitchen, noting how she immediately busied herself with making tea. "She told me some things about Dad, about why she was really fired." May's hands stilled on the teacup handles. "What did she tell you?" "That Dad had forged documents, illegal emerald contracts, that he hit me, and she tried to protect me." Elon watched his mother's carefully controlled expression. "She also mentioned something about a fire." The teacup slipped from May's fingers, shattering on the marble floor. "She shouldn't have told you." "Mom." Elon crouched beside her, helping sweep up pieces. "What happened?" May sat heavily at the kitchen island, suddenly looking every one of her 76 years. "Rosa saw too much. Your father was desperate to keep her quiet." "About the emeralds?" "About everything." May's voice was barely above a whisper. The forged contracts were just the beginning. There were other business partners, dangerous men who visited the house when they thought we were asleep. Rosa knew their names, their faces. She'd memorized everything. "Why didn't you leave him sooner?" "Fear." The word came out bitter. "Your father had threatened to destroy my career, claim I was an unfit mother. In those days, men had all the power in family court. I was terrified of losing you and your siblings." Elon stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. "Rosa mentioned I might still have the necklace she gave me, the one hidden with my childhood things." May nodded slowly. "In the storage boxes upstairs. I kept everything from that house. Even after all these years, I couldn't bear to throw away anything that might be evidence someday." "Evidence of what?" "Your father never just made deals, Elon. He made people disappear when they threatened his interests. Rosa wasn't the only person who knew too much." They climbed the stairs in silence. May led him to a spare bedroom where neatly labeled boxes lined one wall. She pulled down a box marked Elon Childhood Pretoria, with hands that shook slightly. "I haven't opened this in years," she said. Elon lifted the lid, revealing layers of his past. Report cards, drawings of rockets, a broken Rubik's Cube. He dug deeper, finding clothes he remembered, books he'd loved, a small wooden elephant carved by Rosa's friend. Near the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, was a small carved box. Inside, the silver locket lay coiled like a sleeping snake. "2 necklaces," Elon said, holding up both lockets now. "Rosa gave me one yesterday with our picture inside." May opened the old locket carefully. Inside was a different photo. Young Rosa with 3 children, Elon, Kimball, and baby Tosca. But there was something else. Tiny words scratched into the metal. "Remember the lighthouse," Elon read aloud. "What does that mean?" "Oh, God." May sank onto the bed. "I hoped she hadn't done that." "Done what?" "Rosa was terrified your father would find out she knew about his dealings. She made backups, documentation. She hid copies of contracts, photographs, audio recordings." Where? There was an old lighthouse on the coast near Cape Town. Abandoned. You children visited it once on a family trip. Rosa took you there later, alone, and buried a metal box beneath the foundation. Elon stared at his mother. Are you saying she documented everything? And the evidence is still buried at this lighthouse? I don't know if it's still there. That was 40 years ago. But Rosa always said if anything happened to her or to us, someone should check the lighthouse. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I hoped you'd never need to know. May's voice cracked. I thought we'd escaped all of that when we moved to Canada. I thought your father's past would stay buried. What else haven't you told me? May was quiet for a long moment. The fire Rosa mentioned. It wasn't an accident. Elon felt his stomach drop. What fire? 3 days after Rosa was fired, our neighbor's garage burned down. The one who'd been asking questions about your father's business associates. The police ruled it accidental, but you knew better. Rosa called me the night before we fled to Canada. She'd been watching our house. She saw 2 men, including Roberto Silva, near the neighbor's property. She begged me to leave immediately. Elon sank into the chair opposite his mother, processing this information. His childhood, his family's sudden move to Canada, even his father's eventual permanent move back to South Africa. It all had deeper, darker reasons than he'd known. Mom, I need to go back to South Africa. I need to find this lighthouse. Elon, no, it's been 40 years. Those people are probably dead or too old to matter now. He stood, mind already racing through logistics. But their crimes aren't. And Rosa deserves justice. What about Rosa? She's safe now. I've already arranged for her to be moved to a better facility in California. But first, I need to know the complete truth. May reached out and grabbed his arm. There's something else. About the lighthouse. What? Rosa didn't just hide documents there. She buried something else. Something your father gave her years before. When he still trusted her. Before he became dangerous. What kind of something? A key. To a safety deposit box in Johannesburg. One your father thought he'd destroyed all records of. Elon sat back, down heavily. How many secrets are there, Mom? Too many. And some are better left buried. Then why did Rosa tell me to keep looking? May's eyes filled with tears. Because she spent 4 decades carrying this burden alone. Because she loved you like her own child and couldn't bear to see you succeed without knowing the truth about how evil your father really was. Elon held both lockets up to the light, studying the tiny inscriptions and aged photographs. In one, a small boy smiled trustingly at the camera. In the other, that same boy stood surrounded by people who'd protected him from truths he couldn't understand. I'm going to South Africa, he said firmly. I'm going to find this lighthouse, dig up Rosa's box, and retrieve that key. And then I'm going to open that safety deposit box and learn everything my father tried to hide. And then what? Then I'm going to decide what justice looks like, 40 years after the fact. May studied her son's face, the same determined expression he'd worn as a child when he decided to build something impossible. Rosa always said you'd change the world. I don't think this is what she meant. Maybe it's exactly what she meant. Elon pocketed both lockets. Maybe bringing old secrets to light is just as important as reaching Mars. He kissed his mother's forehead and headed for the door. Behind him, May called out softly, "The lighthouse is called Slangkop, about 30 kilometers south of Cape Town. Be careful, Elon." As he drove back through the Los Angeles night, Elon's phone buzzed repeatedly. Board meetings, engineering, deadlines, launch schedules. The future demanding his attention. But for once, the past seemed more urgent. Somewhere in South Africa, beneath an old lighthouse, lay the complete truth about Elon Musk's crimes. And Elon had the distinct feeling that truth wasn't just about emerald contracts or forged documents. Rosa had risked everything to preserve that evidence. The least he could do was ensure her sacrifice meant something. The silver lockets clicked together in his pocket as he accelerated toward home. Two identical necklaces, both carrying pieces of the same hidden truth. Time to uncover what his father had been so desperate to keep buried. The SpaceX Gulfstream landed at Cape Town International on a cloudy February morning. Elon had traveled, in silence, reviewing every detail Rosa and his mother had shared. The lighthouse, the safety deposit box key, Roberto Silva. Each piece felt like part of a puzzle that might be too dangerous to complete. He'd arranged for a private car service and chose a nondescript rental sedan instead. This trip needed to remain under the radar. No press, no security detail, just Elon Musk, a middle-aged man returning to confront his childhood's darkest secrets. The drive to Slangkop Lighthouse took him through familiar territory. Cape Town had changed dramatically since the 1980s, but the outline of Table Mountain remained the same against the sky. Every kilometer brought back fragments of memory. Family trips to the beach, his father's stormy silences, Rosa's comforting presence in the back seat. The lighthouse stood atop a windy hill, its white tower stark against gray clouds. Elon parked at the visitors area and walked the worn path Rosa must have taken decades ago with a small boy and a metal box. The structure was well maintained now, a tourist attraction complete with historical markers. Elon circled the foundation, searching for signs of disturbance in the earth. Near the eastern wall, where the ground sloped slightly, he noticed subtle differences in the vegetation pattern. He'd brought a small shovel, feeling ridiculous but determined. As he dug, his phone buzzed with messages. Tesla stock fluctuations, Mars mission updates. The mundane demands of his present life interrupting this surreal archaeology of his past. After 30 minutes of digging, his shovel hit metal. The sound sent a chill through him. The box was smaller than expected, wrapped in what remained of waterproof cloth. Elon brushed away dirt with trembling hands and pried open the rusted latches. Inside lay exactly what Rosa had promised. Photographs, documents, and a small brass key attached to a numbered tag reading First National Johannesburg, Box 471. The photographs made him nauseous. His father with men in expensive suits, shaking hands outside mining compounds, the same faces recurring, including Roberto Silva, younger but already radiating menace. One photo showed Silva handing Errol a thick envelope while African workers loaded trucks in the background, but it was the documents that proved most damning. Death certificates for the Masango brothers matched perfectly with transfer papers for their mining claims, dated just days before their deaths. The signatures were clearly forged. Elon could see the difference in penmanship now, comparing them to the brothers' signatures on earlier documents. There were also audio recordings stored on old cassette tapes. A note in Rosa's handwriting read, "Hidden microphone in Errol's office study, December 1983. Elon had brought a portable tape player, anticipating this moment. His hands shook as he inserted the first tape and pressed play. Static, then voices. His father, speaking in Afrikaans. The family is asking questions. The brothers' wives want to know about the mine profits. Roberto Silva's gravelly voice responded, "Leave that to me. We've handled curious families before. No violence this time. Too many people watching. Then we make them disappear without violence." Mexico is far away. Argentina is farther. People vanish every day looking for better lives. Elon stopped the tape, bile rising in his throat. He'd found confirmation of everything Rosa had suggested, and worse. His father hadn't just stolen from mining families. He'd orchestrated their disappearances through human trafficking. The second tape was partially degraded, but he caught fragments. Rosa knows too much. Saw the shipping manifests. Needs to be handled carefully. His nanny's a voice, tinny and distant, responding defiantly, "You cannot threaten me, Errol. I have copies hidden. If anything happens to me or the children, nothing will happen if you keep quiet. But if you talk, I promise only to protect the children. Nothing more." Good. Then we're understood. Elon ejected the tape, his hands shaking with anger. Rosa hadn't just witnessed crimes. She'd been blackmailed into silence to protect him and his siblings. He photographed every document with his phone and carefully packed everything back into the box. Before sealing it, he noticed one more item, a child's drawing in crayon, signed Elon at the bottom. It showed a rocket ship with a figure labeled Rosa, waving from a window. The 3-hour drive to Johannesburg passed in a blur. Elon's mind churned through the implications of what he'd discovered. The scale of his father's crimes went far beyond forged documents. This was a systematic operation involving multiple murders, human trafficking, and financial fraud spanning decades. First National Bank in Johannesburg was an imposing granite building in the city center. Elon approached the safety deposit counter, key in hand. "Box 471, please," he said to the elderly clerk. "Identification, sir?" Elon handed over his passport, wondering if the bank still had protocols for accessing decades-old boxes. The clerk's eyes widened slightly upon recognizing his name, but maintained professional composure. "Follow me, please." In the vault, Box 471 sat in a high row. The clerk used a master key alongside Elon's to open it, then left him alone as per bank policy. Inside were more documents, but these were different. Legal papers, property deeds, financial records, all bearing his father's name and signature. But there were also personal items, a letter addressed to Elon, "When you're old enough to understand," and a thick envelope marked "Insurance, open only if." Elon read the letter first, his father's handwriting, oddly vulnerable. "Elon, if you're reading this, I'm either dead or the truth has finally caught up to me. I know you think I'm a monster. You're not wrong. But I need you to understand. I started with good intentions. The emerald mine was supposed to provide for our family. When the first accidents happened, when workers died because of inadequate safety measures I'd approved to save money, I tried to make it right. But Silva got involved. He had connections, solutions that seemed easier than facing the consequences. Every choice led to worse choices. Every covered-up accident required covering up witnesses. Every payoff required more crimes to fund it. I became what I swore I'd never be, my own father's son. Rosa was the only one brave enough to stand up to me. I fired her because I couldn't bear her seeing what I'd become. But she was right about everything. Every single thing. The documents in this box contain full evidence of every crime, every forged signature, every bribe, every act of violence. I saved them because someday I hope to make amends, to bring justice to the families destroyed by my actions. I failed as a father. I failed as a man. But maybe you can succeed where I couldn't. Maybe you can bring light to these buried truths. Your father, Errol. Elon set the letter aside, emotions warring within him. anger at his father's crimes, shock at this unexpected confession, confusion about why Errol had preserved evidence of his own guilt. The insurance envelope contained something even more startling: a full list of every person involved in the criminal network. Silva's full name, Roberto Silva Martinez, addresses, phone numbers, financial records. A complete map of corruption spanning South African mining, Mexican trafficking routes, and Swiss banking. But the most shocking revelation was at the bottom of the list. Carlos Mendoza, Johannesburg Police Commissioner, paid monthly retainer to suppress investigations. Elon photographed everything systematically, then returned to the front desk. "I'll need to extend my time in the vault. There's more to review." "Of course, Mr. Musk." For the next hour, Elon pieced together the complete picture. His father had been part of a network far more extensive than Rosa had known. What she'd witnessed was just the surface of an organization that trafficked workers, forged mining claims, and eliminated anyone who threatened their operations. The final document hit him like a physical blow. A transfer order dated 3 months after Rosa's dismissal. The entire Masango family, parents, children, extended relatives, had been relocated to a non-existent mining camp in Mozambique. According to the paperwork, none had returned. Elon left the bank as the sun set over Johannesburg, carrying the weight of his father's crimes and the evidence to expose them all. But, with Carlos Mendoza revealed as complicit, he realized the corruption had reached the highest levels of law enforcement. Who could he trust with this information? And more importantly, how many people were still alive who might want to keep these secrets buried? His phone rang as he reached his rental car. "May, did you find it?" "I found everything, Mom. More than I wanted to know." "What will you do?" Elon looked at the manila envelope containing copies of every document. "I'm going to do what Dad should have done 40 years ago. I'm going to bring justice to those families." Be careful, Elon. Some truths are dangerous. So is silence. As he drove back toward Cape Town, planning his return to Austin and Rosa, Elon realized the full scope of what lay ahead. These weren't just his father's crimes to right. This was a conspiracy that might still have living participants, people with everything to lose if these truths emerged. But Rosa had sacrificed her life's work to preserve this evidence. The least he could do was ensure it finally saw the light. The hardest part would be deciding where that light should shine first. The flight back to Austin gave Elon 17 hours to plan. He'd spent the first 3 hours digitizing every document, storing encrypted copies in multiple secure locations. By the time he landed, he'd made 3 crucial decisions. First, Rosa deserved to know what he'd found. Second, the families of the victims deserved justice, even decades late. Third, the corruption needed to be exposed carefully. Wrong moves could put people in danger. Oak Ridge Senior Living felt different now. Each step down the familiar halls carried the weight of what he'd discovered. Elon found Rosa in the music therapy room again, this time painting watercolors with other residents. She looked up as he approached, her eyes brightening with recognition despite the fog of dementia. "Elon," she said softly, "you went to the lighthouse. It wasn't a question." Somehow, even through her condition, she knew. "I found everything, Rosa. The box, the key, all of it." She set down her paintbrush with trembling hands. "And now you know. Can we talk somewhere private?" Rosa nodded, and Elon helped her to a quiet sitting area. He pulled out printed copies of some photographs, carefully selected to avoid the most disturbing images. "Rosa, were you involved with documenting all of this?" "Not involved." She studied the photographs like puzzle pieces. watched, and remembered. Your father trusted me once. Let me clean his office, organize his papers. I speak Spanish and a little Portuguese. I heard things in meetings he thought were safe. The audio recordings, how did you make those? My cousin Miguel, he worked in electronics. I told him I needed to know if my employer was saying bad things about me. She smiled sadly. Miguel made me a small microphone, very small. I kept it in my pocket during meetings, left it in the study when I cleaned. You risked everything. Someone had to remember. Those families, they had children, wives, mothers waiting for them to come home. Rosa's clarity was remarkable today, as if discussing these painful memories sharpened her focus. I collected evidence like a journalist. Every conversation, every paper, every face. I filled 3 journals with notes. 3 journals? In Spanish, hidden in different places. I only gave you the official documents. Elon felt his heart race. Rosa, do you still have these journals? One is here, in my room. The orderly doesn't know. She patted his hand. But, Elon, you have to be careful. These men, some are still alive. Silva was younger than your father, and his connections. I'm planning to be very careful. But first, I need to know something. The families who disappeared. Do you know their names? Who survived? Rosa closed her eyes, accessing memories decades old. The Masango brothers, 3 families, 12 children between them. The Gonzalez sisters, they refused to sell their claims. The Nkosi group, 5 families working together. Any survivors? Maria Masango escaped to Mozambique. She had 2 daughters. They would be adults now. Rosa opened her eyes. And Carlos Mendoza, he's still in Johannesburg, still in the police department. I know. I found his name in my father's records. There was more than just police. Politicians, mine owners, shipping companies. Your father was small compared to some of them. She gripped his hand tighter. That's why I was so careful. That's why I never came forward. One person against that network? They would have killed me and made it look like an accident. Elon studied her weathered face, seeing past the age to the young woman who'd risked everything for truth and justice. Rosa, I want to move you to California, to a better facility where you'll have the care you deserve. Would you come with me? Her eyes filled with tears. Why would you do that? I'm just an old nanny who knew too much. You're the person who protected me when no one else would. You preserved evidence that might bring justice to dozens of families. And he hesitated, then continued honestly, because I never got to say goodbye properly. Because you were the only person in that house who made me feel safe, Rosa cried openly now. I always wondered if you remembered anything good from those days. Your father was so hard on you, so cold. I remember you teaching me card games in the kitchen. I remember you humming while you ironed. I remember feeling safe when you were there. Elon pulled out both silver lockets. I have both now. Yours and mine. She looked at the lockets, then back at him. You've become everything I hoped, Elon. But this, exposing your father's crimes, it could be dangerous. Then help me do it safely. Help me understand who we can trust. Rosa was quiet for a long moment. There was one detective in Cape Town. He tried to investigate your father years ago. Got transferred out suddenly. His name was David Modise. Is he still alive? I don't know. But he was honest. One of the few. Elon made a note on his phone. Rosa, I need those journals. and I need you to help me understand the whole network, but not here, where anyone might overhear. Will you trust me to take care of you properly while we work through this? What about the other residents here? I've made friends. We'll bring anyone you want to visit. You'll have your own suite, ocean views, the best medical care. And once a week, if you're up to it, you can help me understand these documents. Help me figure out the safest way to bring justice. Rosa was crying again, but smiling too. I never thought anyone would believe me. I never thought anyone would care about those families. I care, and I have resources to make sure their voices are finally heard. She reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a key. My room. The journal is hidden behind the loose baseboard near the window. Please, be careful getting it. I will. Elon stood to leave, then hesitated. Rosa, why did you keep believing in me all these years? Even after everything with my father? Because you asked different questions than him. Your father wanted to know how much things cost. You wanted to know how things worked. Your father cared about owning. You cared about understanding. She touched his face gently. And because, even as a small boy, you tried to stand between me and danger, just like you're doing now for those families. 20 minutes later, Elon left Oak Ridge with Rosa's journal, a water-stained notebook filled with names, dates, and observations in precise Spanish handwriting. Alongside it, he carried the commitment to honor her sacrifice with action. His ZEE phone showed dozens of missed calls, Tesla emergency meetings, SpaceX launch delays, board members demanding attention. But for the first time in his life, Elon Musk felt absolutely clear about his priorities. He called his assistant. Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks, all of it, and arranged transport for a new resident at the Malibu facility. Priority level 1. Everything, Mr. Musk? The NASA meeting? Everything. Something more important came up. As he drove toward SpaceX headquarters to begin coordinating Rosa's move, Elon mentally organized his approach. First, ensure Rosa's safety and comfort. Second, digitize all evidence thoroughly. Third, contact David Modise if he was still alive. Fourth, identify surviving family members. Fifth, consult with his legal team about the safest way to expose a decades-old conspiracy. It felt strange, this mission having nothing to do with rockets or electric cars. But looking at Rosa's journal on the passenger seat, he realized it might be the most important project he'd ever undertaken. Justice delayed wasn't justice denied. Not when someone had preserved the truth for 40 years, waiting for the right moment to let it shine. The SpaceX medical transport aircraft touched down at Austin Bergstrom International Airport at dawn. Elon had customized it himself. Medical equipment, comfortable seating, even a small window so Rosa could watch the sunrise during takeoff. He'd spent the previous 3 days ensuring every detail was perfect. Rosa, look outside, he said gently, helping her settle into the specially designed seat. The sun is coming up. She pressed her face to the window like a child, her silver hair catching the early light. I haven't flown in an airplane since I left South Africa. Her voice carried wonder mixed with nervousness. Are you sure about this, Elon? I'm just a burden to you now. You're not a burden. He adjusted her seatbelt and oxygen monitor. You're a hero. Heroes get first-class treatment. The flight attendant, a registered nurse Elon had hired specifically for this journey, brought Rosa warm tea in a proper china cup. Mrs. Martinez, is there anything special you'd like to eat during our flight? Churros, Rosa said dreamily. I haven't had good churros in 20 years. We have churros, the nurse smiled. Fresh from the galley. As the plane climbed into clear Texas skies, Elon showed Rosa pictures of her new home on his tablet. Ocean views from every window, a garden you can walk in, room for visitors whenever you want them. Will you visit? She touched his arm. Your life is so busy. Rockets and cars and saving the world. Every Sunday. I promise. He meant it. After everything he'd learned, after understanding her sacrifice, weekly visits felt like the absolute minimum. And when you're feeling strong, maybe you can help me understand more about those families. About Detective Modise. Rosa's expression shifted, memory working its way through the fog of dementia. David Modise was a good man. Young detective. Very serious. He came to our neighborhood asking questions after the Masango brothers disappeared. Your father was furious. Do you remember what he looked like? Tall. Very tall. Wore wire-rimmed glasses. Had a scar here. She traced a line above her left eyebrow. From the riots in '76, he told me. He kept a small notebook, like mine. Elon pulled out his phone and made notes. Every detail could be crucial for tracking down Modise. Halfway through the flight, Rosa grew quiet, staring out at clouds. Elon, what if they're all dead? All those families? Some might be, but not all. Maria Masango escaped, remember, and her daughters. They deserve to know what really happened to their family. And if finding them puts them in danger? Elon had wrestled with this question for days. Then we'll protect them. I have resources your father never had. Security teams, legal connections, media influence. We can expose this the right way. Rosa nodded slowly. The journals will help. Especially the third one. The third journal? I only found one in your room. Because I was careful. One here, one with my friend Elena in Dallas, one... She paused, confusion clouding her eyes. One somewhere safe. I can't remember where. It's okay. We'll figure it out together. The nurse approached with a tray of churros and fresh fruit. Rosa's eyes lit up at the sight. Just like Mexico City, she murmured, biting into a churro. My mother made these every Sunday after church. She looked at Elon with sudden clarity. Did I ever tell you about my mother? No. Rosa. Tell me. She was a teacher, wanted me to be one too. Instead, I became a nanny for rich families. She smiled sadly. But maybe preserving those records was like teaching the truth to someone who could finally learn it. Elon felt his throat tighten. You did teach me the most important lesson of my life. They landed at Los Angeles International just before noon. A medical transport van waited on the tarmac, another detail Elon had arranged. As they transferred Rosa to the vehicle, she grasped his hand. The ocean, she whispered. I can smell it already. The drive to Malibu took 90 minutes. Rosa dozed fitfully, occasionally waking to ask questions. Will there be other Spanish speakers? Yes. Can I have visitors from Oak Ridge? Of course. Will you bring the children? Your children? Absolutely. The Seawind Senior Living community was nothing like Oak Ridge. Glass walls, ocean panoramas, gardens with walking paths. Rosa's suite was larger than most apartments, with a sitting area, bedroom, and private patio facing the Pacific. This is too much, she protested, as nurses helped her settle in. Too expensive. Rosa, remember when I was 8 and you bought me that model rocket kit with your own money? You said some investments pay off in ways you can't predict. Elon arranged her few belongings carefully. This is my investment paying off. They spent the afternoon getting Rosa familiar with her new surroundings. She met the staff, many bilingual, as Elon had requested. She explored the garden, touching roses and jasmine. She sat on her patio, watching waves crash against distant rocks. "It's like a dream," she said over dinner on the patio. "A good dream, finally." "Rosa, can I ask you something difficult? About my father's letter in the safety deposit box?" She set down her fork. "You found it. He knew everything. He documented his own crimes. Why? Guilt, maybe. Or insurance. Your father was always afraid someone would expose him first." Rosa gazed at the ocean. Near the end, he changed. Started drinking more. Talking about the families he'd destroyed. He once told me he'd prepared everything in case he needed to make a deal with authorities. Did he ever try? No. He was too afraid of Silva and the others. They would have killed him. She paused. Like they killed the families. Elon sat back, processing. "Rosa, if I do this, if I expose everything, are you prepared for what might happen? Your story will become public. People will want to interview you. I'm not afraid." She looked at him steadily. "I've had 40 years to be afraid. Now I'm too old and too tired to worry about men like Silva or Mendoza. But your dementia comes and goes, good days and bad days. On good days, I remember. Everything." She tapped her temple. "It's all still here. Names, dates, faces. Maybe that's why I held on so long. To tell someone. To tell you." As the sun set over the Pacific, they sat in comfortable silence. Elon's phone buzzed constantly. Ignored. Messages about Mars missions and board meetings. None of it seemed as important as this moment, watching Rosa find peace after decades of carrying terrible secrets. "Tomorrow, I meet with my legal team," he said finally, "to discuss the safest way to proceed. And the day after, I start looking for David Modise and Maria Masango. Start putting faces and names to the evidence." Rosa nodded approvingly. "You were always good at solving puzzles, even as a child. Remember the chemistry set I bought you? You spent hours mixing things, seeing what would happen. I still do that. Different scale now. Same curiosity, same determination." She patted his hand. "That's why I kept the evidence safe. Not for the authorities who could be bought. Not for journalists who might sensationalize. For you. For someone with the power and the heart to do something real." Elon walked Rosa to her bedroom after dinner, helping her prepare for her first night in her new home. As he turned to leave, she called him back. "Elon?" "The third journal. I remember now where I hid it." "Where?" "In the lighthouse. But not where you found the box." She smiled mysteriously. "Inside the lighthouse. There's a loose stone third row from the top of the stairs. I climbed up there one night after I buried the other. Evidence. Wanted a backup in case someone found the first hiding place." Elon stared at her. "You climbed 90 feet of stairs, in the dark, to hide a journal? People do impossible things when they're protecting someone they love." Rosa settled back on her pillows. "Like sending rockets to space. Like changing the world one impossible project at a time." As Elon drove back to his Los Angeles home that night, he felt the familiar weight of a new mission settling on his shoulders. But unlike Tesla's production challenges or SpaceX's technical hurdles, this project carried a different kind of urgency. Rosa was safe, comfortable, and had finally shared her burden. But her story, and his father's crimes, now demanded more than just preservation. They demanded action. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of bringing 40-year-old secrets into the light. And somewhere in a lighthouse tower, one final piece of evidence waited to complete the puzzle. Elon made the decision at 3 a.m., staring at his bedroom ceiling. Instead of flying back to South Africa for the third journal, he would start building bridges here. Rosa was settling into her new life, and he'd promised her weekly visits. The journal could wait a few more days. Sunday morning found him back at Seawind, carrying a box of pastries and his youngest son, whose Spanish lessons had been struggling. Rosa sat in the garden, painting watercolors under a large umbrella. "Rosa, I brought someone who needs your help," Elon said, gently guiding the 7-year-old forward. Rosa's dementia often made introductions challenging, but children seemed to cut through the fog. Her eyes brightened immediately. "Buenos dias," she said to the boy. "Como te llamas?" I don't know the words," he admitted shyly. "Then we learn together. Sit." She patted the bench beside her. In Spanish, sitting is sentarse. Can you say that? For the next hour, Elon watched his son absorb Spanish vocabulary through painting and storytelling. Rosa's teacher instincts emerged naturally, patient and encouraging. It reminded him of his own childhood lessons, learning numbers in Spanish while helping her fold laundry. "Dad, why does Rosa know so many stories?" his son asked, mixing blue paint for the ocean. "Because she's lived a long life and paid attention," Elon replied, catching Rosa's grateful smile. After lunch, while his son explored the garden with a staff member, Elon and Rosa sat on her patio. The Pacific stretched endlessly before them. "You're a good father," Rosa observed. "Better than yours was." "I had a better example." He pulled out his tablet. "Rosa, I've been thinking about the families. Instead of trying to find them all at once, what if we used a different approach?" She tilted her head, interested. "We start with the truth. Create a memorial website listing all the victims. Post factual information about what happened. Let families find us if they choose to." Rosa considered this carefully. "Less dangerous than hunting them down." "Exactly. And more respectful. Some families might not want to relive this." "Smart boy." She patted his knee. Always thinking 3 steps ahead. They spent the afternoon outlining the website concept. Rosa's memory became surprisingly sharp as she listed names, families, dates. Elon took meticulous notes on his tablet, sometimes having to stop her to keep up. "The Nkosi family. 5 brothers, 2 sisters," she recited. They shared claims in the Kimberley district. Silva's men told them they were being relocated to a new mine in Botswana. None returned. "And you documented all this?" "Everything. Even what I couldn't prove, I documented. Suspicions, overheard conversations, witnesses who disappeared." Elon's phone buzzed with a message from his security team. They'd located Detective David Modis, retired, living in a suburb of Cape Town, still working part-time as a private investigator. "Rosa, we found him. Detective Modis." Her eyes widened. "He's alive?" "Alive and apparently still investigating cold cases." "Should I contact him?" Rosa was quiet for a long moment. He was honest, one of the few. But Elon, if he's been investigating for 40 years and never solved it, there might be a reason. What kind of reason? Maybe he found something too dangerous to pursue. Maybe he was warned off, like I was. Elon considered this. Or maybe he just needed the right evidence, the evidence you preserved. The following Sunday became a routine. Elon arrived with his children, spending mornings in Spanish lessons and afternoons working on the memorial project. Rosa designed it like a digital museum, each family getting their own page, photos when available, testimonies when survivors could be found. During their fourth visit, something unexpected happened. While Rosa played cards with Elon's daughter, a resident from another wing wandered over. "Martinez?" the elderly woman asked in accented English. "Rosa Martinez?" Rosa looked up, confusion followed by recognition. "Elena? Elena Vasquez?" The women embraced tearfully. Elena had been Rosa's friend in Dallas, the woman holding the second journal. "I saw you in the garden last week," Elena explained. "But I wasn't sure. You look so good now." "These are Elon's children," Rosa said proudly. "You remember Elon? I told you stories." Elena's eyes widened as she looked at Elon. "The little boy who loved rockets? But you're all grown up," Elon smiled. "And you have one of Rosa's journals." After the children were settled with art supplies, the three adults sat in Rosa's suite. Elena retrieved the second journal from her room. Pages filled with names, addresses, witness statements Rosa had collected after leaving the Musk household. "I kept it safe like you asked," Elena said. "But Rosa, why didn't you tell him sooner?" "I was afraid. Afraid for him, afraid they'd find us." Rosa touched Elon's arm. "But he found me instead. And now we can finally tell the truth." Elon photographed every page of the second journal, discovering new details about the criminal network. Client lists for human trafficking, bank account numbers, even photographs, grainy but recognizable faces at clandestine meetings. One photo stopped him cold. His father with Roberto Silva and three other men at what appeared to be a dock. In the background, a shipping container was being loaded. The date stamp read, "Deck 1983, the month before Rosa was fired." "What's in the container?" he asked. Rosa studied the photo through reading glasses. People. They moved families in shipping containers, sometimes for days at sea. To where? Mexico, first. Then disappear into Central America, South America, places where missing people were already common. Elon felt sick. The scope of his father's crimes went beyond financial fraud or even murder. This was systematic human trafficking, destroying entire families to hide mining fraud. That evening, after the children were asleep and Elena had returned to her wing, Elon and Rosa sat on the patio watching stars appear over the ocean. "I've decided to contact Detective Modiz," he said. "With both journals, plus what I found in South Africa, we have a complete picture." "Are you sure?" "Rosa, you sacrificed 40 years to preserve this truth. I have the resources to expose it, safely now, and those families deserve justice, even if it's late." She nodded slowly. "Then do it. But Elon, promise me something. Anything. Don't become so focused on the past that you lose sight of why it matters. Those children, yours, and the ones we're trying to help, they're the future. Justice is for them, not revenge against ghosts." Elon took her hand. "That's why I waited to contact Modizi. These Sunday visits, they reminded me what really matters. Building, not destroying." "Exactly." As he prepared to leave, Rosa handed him a small envelope. "For your flight tomorrow. Read it when you're on the plane." "What is it?" "A letter I wrote to you when you were 8, the night before your father fired me." She smiled sadly. "I never sent it, but maybe now is the right time." Elon drove home that night with 3 things: high-resolution scans of the second journal, a plan to contact Detective Modiz in the morning, and an unopened letter from his past. The memorial website was taking shape. The evidence was mounting. And most importantly, Rosa was no longer carrying this burden alone. But tomorrow would bring new challenges. Detective Modus might have good reasons for not pursuing this case, or he might have been waiting 40 years for exactly this kind of evidence. Either way, the truth was finally moving from preservation to action. And somewhere in a lighthouse tower, the final piece waited. The phone call came at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday. Elon was reviewing the third quarter's Tesla projections when his assistant Siobhan interrupted with unusual urgency. "Sir, it's about Rosa Martinez's financial situation. You need to speak with the facility's administrator." Elon pulled up his banking app, expecting to see an issue with the payment arrangements he'd made for Seawind. Instead, he found something shocking. "Dr. Chen?" He answered the call on speaker. "What's the problem?" "There's no problem, Mr. Musk. I'm calling about Mrs. Martinez's personal accounts. During routine paperwork processing, we discovered she has significant assets." "What kind of assets?" "Tesla stocks, sir. Substantial holdings. Our financial advisor ran the numbers twice." Elon's mind raced. "How much Tesla stock?" "Current value approximately $2.3 million. She's been holding shares since 2010. Elon sat down heavily. Rosa had never mentioned investments. In all their conversations about the past, about evidence and secrets, she'd never said a word about having money. Does she know the current value? I believe she's known for some time, but hasn't acted on it. When we asked about liquidating some shares to help with care costs, she said she was saving them for someone special. 2 hours later, Elon sat across from Rosa in her suite. The financial statements spread between them on her coffee table. "Rosa, why didn't you tell me?" She smiled sheepishly, looking like a child caught keeping cookies before dinner. "I wanted to hear your promise first, that you'd help expose the truth. Money changes things, makes people question motives. But $2.3 million, $3. You were living in that nursing home in Austin while sitting on this fortune? I didn't understand numbers that big." She touched one of the statements. "My friend Elena's grandson explained stocks to me in 2010. He said Tesla was changing the world, like his grandmother always said you would. So I invested my savings." "Your savings from working as a nanny?" 40 years of savings. Different families, careful budgets. I never married, never had children of my own. Just saved and waited. Elon felt overwhelmed by the implications. "Rosa, you could have had any care you wanted. Private nursing, your own home. I chose simple living for safety. Too much attention on an old woman with secrets. Dangerous." She leaned forward. "But now I have an idea. Something better than fancy care for one old lady. Tell me, those families we're trying to help, the memorial website, what if we create more than just memory?" "What do you mean?" "A fund. Education for their descendants. Scholarships for children whose grandparents were taken. Real help, not just apologies." Elon stared at her. This woman who'd preserved evidence at great personal risk and now wanted to use her unexpected wealth for others. "Rosa, that's practical," she finished. "Like you always were as a child. Always asking how to fix things, make them better." They spent the morning planning. The Rosa Martinez STEM Education Fund would provide scholarships specifically for descendants of the mining families, computer programming, engineering, space science, fields where the next generation could build futures their ancestors had been denied. "We'll need legal structure," Elon said, his mind shifting into business mode. "Proper verification for recipients, partnership with universities, and we announce it with the memorial website," Rosa added. "Show that justice isn't just about exposing crimes. It's about building something new from the wreckage." As they worked, Elon's phone rang. Detective David Modis, returning his call from yesterday. Mr. Musk, I was surprised to hear from you. Your email mentioned new evidence about the 1983 trafficking network? Elon put him on speaker. Detective Modis, I'm here with Rosa Martinez. Silence on the line. Then, Rosa Martinez is alive? Very much so. And she kept everything, Detective. Documents, recordings, photographs. Her complete investigation. Good God. 40 years I've been chasing shadows, trying to prove what I knew happened. Are you still interested in pursuing this? Interested? Modis laughed bitterly. Son, I never stopped. Every time I thought I had enough evidence, witnesses disappeared or died. Every time I built a case, my superiors would redirect me to more pressing matters. Rosa leaned toward the phone. David? It's really me. I'm sorry I never contacted you. Rosa. His voice softened. I tried to find you after you were fired. Your forwarding addresses all dead ends. I had to disappear. They threatened deportation if I talked. I know. I found the false police reports your employer's people filed. Accusations of theft, fabricated witness statements. Very professional intimidation. Elon interjected, Detective, with Rosa's evidence and what I found in my father's safety deposit box, do we have enough for prosecution? Prosecution? Modis chuckled sadly. Son, the principals are mostly dead. Your father, Santos Alvarez, Miguel Torres, all dead. Roberto Silva died in prison in 2018. Unrelated charges, but justice of a sort. What about Carlos Mendoza? Retired, pension intact, living quietly in Stellenbosch, protected by old connections. Rosa touched Elon's arm. Maybe formal prosecution isn't the point anymore. Maybe it's about truth and restoration. Restoration? Modis asked. Elon explained their emerging plan, the memorial website, the education fund, public documentation of the crimes without necessarily pursuing aged criminals. That might be wise, Modis said thoughtfully. And more importantly, it might help survivors. Many families never knew what really happened to their relatives. They still search, still wonder. Would you help us, Detective, in an advisory capacity? I've waited 40 years to see this evidence see daylight. Of course I'll help. After the call ended, Elon and Rosa sat in contemplative silence. It feels different now, Rosa said finally, like pieces falling into place. The money, the detective, the plan. It's all coming together. But Elon, remember what I said about not chasing ghosts? This fund, this memorial, they're for the living. He nodded, understanding. The dead are gone. It's the children and grandchildren who need justice. Now. Exactly. And maybe that's what you were always meant to do with all this. Not just expose crimes, but create opportunities. As Elon left that afternoon, Rosa handed him another envelope. This isn't a letter from the past. It's a check for the education fund. A start. The check was for $100,000, roughly 4% of her Tesla holdings. Rosa, this is too much for a start. It's exactly enough. The first investment in turning tragedy into hope. Driving back to Tesla headquarters, Elon realized something profound had shifted. The investigation that had begun as a quest for truth about his father's crimes was transforming into something constructive. Rosa's surprise wealth wasn't just funding. It was validation of her patience, her belief that justice could be more than punishment. His phone buzzed with another board meeting reminder. Q4 projections, manufacturing targets, delivery schedules. The future calling. But for the first time, the future felt connected to the past in a meaningful way. Every rocket launched, every electric car produced. They were building the world. Rosa had always believed he could create a world where technology serves justice, not just progress. The third journal still waited in the lighthouse tower, but maybe its contents would matter less than what they were already building from the evidence gathered. Rosa had taught him the most important lesson wasn't just about uncovering truth. It was about what you did with truth once you found it. Winter settled over Malibu with unusual chill, bringing morning fog that wrapped around sea wind like a soft blanket. Elon noticed the change in Rosa during his Sunday visits. Not worse, exactly, but different. Some days her mind was crystal clear, memories flowing like water. Other days, she struggled to remember his name. The fog inside matches the fog outside. She'd joke on difficult mornings, tapping her temple. On a particularly lucid Sunday in late February, Rosa surprised him with an announcement. "I want to write letters," she said, settling into her favorite armchair with unusual purpose. "While I can still remember everything clearly." "What kind of letters?" "To you, to your children, to the families we're trying to help." She pulled out a leather-bound notebook from beside her chair. "Stories about your childhood that shouldn't be lost. Lessons about what I learned watching a little boy become all this." Elon helped her arrange pillows for comfort. "Rosa, you don't have to, I want to, while the memories are still mine to share." Over the following weeks, their Sunday visits developed a new rhythm. Rosa would dictate while Elon typed on his laptop, sometimes asking him to read passages back so she could refine them. "Dear Elon," she began one afternoon, "this letter is about the day you built your first computer. You were 10 years old, and your father refused to buy you one. So you collected parts from the neighborhood, old televisions, broken radios, anything electronic. You spent 3 weeks building it in the garage shed." She paused, eyes distant with memory. "When it finally worked, you didn't show your father. You showed me first. You were so proud, but also scared. 'What if he says it's stupid?' you asked me. What did you tell me? I told you that real inventors always fear judgment, but the best ones do the work anyway." Elon typed slowly, remembering that moment. His first taste of creating something from nothing. The smell of solder, the satisfaction of circuits connecting. "Keep going," he said softly. "Your father found out 3 days later. He was furious. Said you'd stolen parts, made a mess, wasted time. But he looked at that computer differently than he looked at your drawings or models. He was afraid of it, of you. Afraid. Because it worked. Because you'd done something he couldn't control or understand." Rosa smiled. "That's when I knew. You'd leave South Africa. You couldn't grow in a garden with poisoned soil." The letters accumulated over weeks. Stories about teaching him Spanish through cooking, how he'd once tried to fix the washing machine because the spin cycle wasn't efficient enough. The time he'd hidden neighborhood cats in the garage during a thunderstorm, knowing his father would be angry. "You always protected the vulnerable," Rosa observed. "Cats, younger kids, even me when your father raised his voice. It was never about yourself." One Sunday, Rosa's condition seemed particularly fragile. She kept losing her train of thought, repeating questions. But when she saw Elon's daughter practicing Spanish homework on the patio, something shifted. "Come. Here, mi cielo," she called. "Let me see your work." As Rosa helped with irregular verbs, her clarity returned. Teaching, it seemed, cut through dementia like sunlight through fog. "I want to write something for your children," she said later, after the Spanish lesson. Things they should know about their father. About the boy who wanted to change the world, before he even knew what the world was. "Dear Elon's children," she dictated. "Your father was the only child I knew who asked why before what or how. When other children built towers with blocks, he built them to test wind resistance. When others played with toy cars, he redesigned their engines on paper." She paused for a long moment, struggling to find words. He had nightmares as a child, dreams where rockets he built would fail, where people counted on him and he'd let them down. I would sit with him until he fell back asleep, and he'd make me promise never to tell anyone about the dreams. I'd forgotten those nightmares, Elon admitted. They drove you harder. Fear of failure became fuel for success. Rosa looked at him intently. That fear is still there, isn't it? In how hard you push yourself, your teams, your dreams. Maybe. It's not weakness, Elon. It's love. Fear of letting people down is just love wearing a worried face. During another visit, Rosa asked him to help her organize all the letters chronologically. As they worked, she kept returning to one theme. "Promise me something," she said, arranging papers with trembling hands. "When you go to get that third journal from the lighthouse, and I know you will, don't go alone. Rosa, I'm perfectly capable of climbing lighthouse stairs with a weak left knee you don't admit to having." She gave him a stern look. "I watched you favor that leg last week. Old sports injury? Soccer. Years ago. Then take help. Not for the climb, for the coming down. Knowledge weighs more than evidence, Elon. Coming down with the truth is always harder than going up to find it." That evening, as Elon prepared to leave, Rosa handed him a thick envelope. "Letters for your ex-wife," she said. "For Justine. She deserves to understand some things about why you are the way you are." "Rosa, she's the mother of your children. Understanding your past helps her understand their father." Her voice was firm. "These aren't secrets to hide from. They're explanations to share." Elon accepted the envelope reluctantly. His relationship with Justine was complicated enough without Rosa's childhood observations. "One more thing," Rosa said, reaching into her drawer. She pulled out a USB drive. "Detective Modise and I have been corresponding. We've digitized everything. Both journals, the recordings, the photographs. Backup copies for backup copies. When did you do all this? Good days are for important work." She pressed the drive into his palm. "Bad days are for rest. I'm learning to accept both." As he drove home that night, Elon thought about Rosa's words, understanding versus hiding. Truth as weight rather than weapon. The difference between justice and vengeance. His phone buzzed with the usual avalanche of messages: engineering challenges at SpaceX, supply chain issues at Tesla, board members seeking direction. But for the first time in months, he felt no urgency to respond immediately. Rosa was teaching him something more fundamental than rocket science or business strategy. She was showing him how to transform painful truth into purposeful action, how to carry weight without being crushed by it. The third journal remained in its lighthouse hiding place, but Elon realized it wasn't calling to him with the same urgency. Rosa's letters, with their blend of childhood memories and hard-earned wisdom, contained everything he truly needed to know. Not just about his father's crimes, but about the boy who'd survived them and the man he'd become despite them. The call came on a Wednesday morning in early March. Dr. Chen's voice was gentle but urgent. "Mr. Musk, you should come today. Rosa's condition has taken a turn." Elon canceled a NASA meeting and drove straight to Malibu. He found Rosa propped up in bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, but her eyes held something different than illness. Determination, perhaps. Or peace. "Don't look so worried," she said, her voice raspier than usual. "I'm not dying today, but I am going somewhere." "Where?" "To watch our rocket launch tomorrow." She smiled at his confusion. "SpaceX, remember? Starship test flight. I've been following. The countdown online. I want to see it in person. Rosa, you can barely... I can sit in a wheelchair just as well in Texas as here. And I've waited 82 years to see a real rocket launch." Her eyes sparkled with familiar stubbornness. "I didn't survive your father's threats to miss this." 6 hours later, a medical transport was ready at LAX. Dr. Chen had coordinated with SpaceX's medical team. Everything was arranged: portable oxygen, specialized wheelchair, cardiac monitoring. Elon had seen easier mission launches. "This is insane," he muttered as they lifted Rosa's gurney into the aircraft. "Insane is my specialty," she replied, gripping his hand. "I convinced a billionaire to dig up 40-year-old evidence. I can handle a rocket launch." The flight to Texas tested everyone's patience. Rosa's breathing grew labored despite extra oxygen. Her blood pressure fluctuated, but whenever doctors suggested turning back, she'd shake her head firmly. "I've missed too many important moments in life," she said. "First school plays when I was working extra jobs, quinceañeras when families moved away, your college graduation when I couldn't find you." She looked directly at Elon. "I'm not missing this." They landed at dawn. The March air carried a bite, but the sky promised clear weather, perfect launch conditions. Elon had arranged a special viewing area close to the launch tower, protected but with unobstructed views. As they positioned Rosa's wheelchair, she gazed at the massive Starship vehicle. "It's bigger than your bedroom models," she said, then laughed at her own understatement. "Much, much bigger." The viewing area filled with VIPs, press, and SpaceX employees. None had expected to see Elon arrive with an elderly woman in a wheelchair, but word spread quickly through the ranks who she was. "Is that really Rosa?" whispered an engineer who'd heard the story. "The nanny who saved all those documents?" "She's more than that," Elon corrected quietly. "She's the reason I learned to reach for stars." As the countdown progressed, Rosa asked questions that surprised even veteran engineers. "The methane combustion ratio, that's optimal for Mars' atmosphere density, isn't it? How did you—" "I read everything you publish and watched every launch online." She patted his arm. "Old ladies have internet too, you know. T-minus 30 minutes. Rosa insisted on wearing a SpaceX shirt someone had rushed to the gift shop. "Now I'm official," she declared. T-minus 10 minutes. Her breathing had eased, as if the excitement provided better medicine than oxygen tanks. T-minus 60 seconds. The crowd fell silent. Rosa reached for Elon's hand. "Whatever happens next," she whispered, "remember, you already succeeded. Not just with rockets, with everything we uncovered, everything we're building." 30 seconds. 20. 10. Ignition. The ground shook. Sound waves hit like physical force. Starship rose on a pillar of flame, climbing against gravity, defying the impossible. Rosa's face transformed, years falling away, eyes reflecting the rocket's light. For a moment, Elon saw the young nanny who'd sung lullabies about reaching stars. "It's beautiful," she breathed, voice barely audible over the roar. "So beautiful." The rocket cleared the tower, accelerating toward space. Rosa never took her eyes off it, even as tears ran down her cheeks. "Remember when you asked me if people could really go to Mars?" she said, still watching the brilliant point of light climbing toward the heavens. "I always knew you'd find the answer." 2 minutes into flight, as Starship began its planned trajectory, Rosa slumped slightly in her wheelchair. Elon immediately called the medical team, but she waved them back. "I'm fine, just tired." She smiled, a deep, satisfied smile. "I saw it. I really saw it." The rest of the launch proceeded flawlessly. As the rocket disappeared into the blue, Rosa continued talking, though more quietly now. "You know what I thought about watching it rise?" She looked at Elon. "Not the technology or the engineering. I thought about all those families, how their children might have grown up to build things like this, if they'd had the chance." "The scholarship fund will help their grandchildren," Elon said. "Their great-grandchildren. Yes, we turn tragedy into opportunity. That's the real justice, isn't it?" As the crowd dispersed and SpaceX teams celebrated the successful test flight, Rosa asked to be wheeled to the edge of the viewing area where they could see the Gulf of Mexico in the distance. "This reminds me of Cape Town," she said. "Different ocean, but the same feeling of endless possibility." "Rosa, we should head back to the medical facility." "In a minute. I want to give you something first." She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. "I wrote this last week, on a good day." "Another letter?" "The most important one." She pressed it into his hands. "But don't read it now. Save it for when you need it most." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun climb higher over the Texas coast. Rosa's breathing had grown rhythmic, peaceful. "You did it, Elon," she murmured. "You didn't just escape. You transformed. Your father thought power came from controlling others. You learned it comes from lifting others up. I learned that from you. You learned that from yourself. I just recognized it." As they prepared to leave, Rosa asked for one more favor. "Take me to the lighthouse, the real one, Slankop." "Rosa, you're too weak, not to climb, just to stand at the base, to complete the circle." Her eyes held a familiar determination. "The third journal can stay where it is, but I want to visit where I buried our truth." Elon studied her face, tired but resolute. Sometimes the most caring thing was to say yes to what seemed impossible. "I'll arrange everything." As medical teams carefully moved Rosa back to the transport, Elon heard her humming. The same African lullaby from that first day in Austin. The same tune that had carried him through childhood fears and adult challenges. "Duerme, mi niño, duerme ya." This time, he knew all the words, and this time, he understood why she'd never stop singing. Elon stood at Rosa's bedside in the Malibu facility, watching her sleep. The rocket launch had taken more out of her than anyone expected. 3 days had passed, and she drifted between consciousness and dreams, sometimes speaking in Spanish to people who weren't there. He'd canceled everything: board meetings, engineering reviews, even a conference call with NASA. His teams understood. Word had spread that Rosa, the woman whose evidence had launched an internal investigation into decades-old mining crimes, was dying. "Sir, a nurse said softly. "She's been asking for you. She has something for you." Rosa's eyes opened as Elon Musk approached. They were cloudier now, but focused on him with surprising intensity. "The desk," she whispered. Behind the loose board." "What desk?" "My desk. Here." She gestured weakly toward her room's writing desk. "Secret compartment. Like at Oak Ridge." Elon knelt by the antique desk, running his fingers along the back panel. He found a slight gap, pressed, and heard a soft click. A hidden drawer slid open. Inside lay a stack of letters rubber-banded together, addressed to him in Rosa's careful handwriting. Each envelope bore a different date, spanning from 1984 to present. 40 years of correspondence she'd never sent. "My insurance policy," Rosa said, watching him, "in case I never found you, or lost the courage to tell you everything." Elon sat beside her bed, the letters heavy in his hands. "Rosa, you should rest. No time for rest." She struggled to sit higher. "Open the one marked first. It explains everything." His fingers found the oldest envelope, dated simply January 1984. Inside, the paper was yellowed, but the ink remained clear. "Dear Elon, tomorrow your father fires me. He doesn't know yet, but I know. I heard him planning with Silva last night. I want you to understand something before I go. It wasn't just about the mining contracts or forged documents. There was another reason your father needed me gone. You were getting too smart, asking too many questions, watching his meetings, memorizing faces, noticing patterns. Most 8-year-olds forget. You remembered everything. Names, dates, who visited when. You made lists in your homework notebooks. Lists of men who scared me. Lists of times your father lied to your mother. Yesterday, you asked me why Roberto Silva always counted money twice before putting it in his briefcase. I lied to you. I said he was just careful with money. The truth? He was checking for marked bills. Evidence. Your father knew you'd noticed. Knew you'd keep noticing. I'm being fired to protect you, not him." Rosa, Elon's hands trembled as he set down the letter. "I was documenting his crimes without knowing it? You couldn't help yourself. Even then, you saw patterns others missed." Rosa's breathing was labored, but her voice grew stronger. "Your father was terrified you'd piece it together. Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because understanding it then would have put you in more danger." She reached for his hand. "But now you need to know why I really kept all that evidence." Elon opened the next letter, dated 6 months later. "Dear Elon, I learned something today that changes everything. The Masango families, the mining accidents, they weren't random. Your father was systematically targeting families with smart children. Children who might grow up to investigate. Children who might remember. Silva called it pruning the future, removing threats before they could grow. They investigated you too, Elon. At school, asked your teachers about your interests, your abilities. When they reported back that you were exceptional at retaining detail and showed investigative tendencies, your father panicked. Getting rid of me was step 1. Moving you to Canada was step 2. You were never in physical danger. You were too valuable. His own son, useful for future business. But you were too dangerous to keep around the operations." "Rosa," the words blurred as tears filled Elon's eyes. "He moved us to protect me from his own crimes and to protect his crimes from you." Rosa watched his face. "Keep reading," Letter after letter revealed a pattern Elon had never seen. His father hadn't been just a criminal. He'd been running a systematic operation to eliminate witnesses. Children were viewed as future threats, their memories dangerous evidence. The 1990 letter was the most chilling. Dear Elon, I found out why Silva was so interested in your science projects. They weren't worried about what you knew. They were worried about what you might invent. Technology to document things, to preserve evidence, to see through lies. They understood before anyone else that a boy who could build computers from scraps might someday build systems to expose their entire network. Your father argued to keep you safe. Silva wanted to take preventive measures. They compromised on isolation, keep you far from operations, surrounded by technology instead of people. In a twisted way, your father's crimes led to your careers. Distance from him let you develop freely. Guilt pushed him to fund your education generously. Every Tesla car, every SpaceX rocket exists, partly because your father tried to hide his crimes from you. Rosa. Elon set the letters aside, overwhelmed. My entire life, shaped by his fear, by his guilt. Rosa coughed, and Elon helped her with water. He knew you were special, knew you'd uncover truth wherever you found it. So he gave you space to discover other truths, safer truths. The last letter, Elon said, from this week. What's in it? Rosa gestured weakly. Read it together. With me. Elon found the final envelope, dated 3 days ago. As he opened it, Rosa began speaking along with his reading. Dear Elon, you're reading. This beside my bed. I can see the future sometimes, you know? Everything I preserved, the documents, recordings, journals, they were for you. Not for justice, not for the families, though they deserved both. They were for you to understand that you were never defined by your father's crimes. You were shaped by your resistance to them. Every question you asked as a child that annoyed him. Every system you built that exposed flaws in his thinking. Every time you chose transparency over secrecy, collaboration over control, you were becoming the opposite of what he represented. The real secret isn't what he hid. It's who you became in spite of it. Now you know everything. Use it to light the path forward, not to punish ghosts from the past. With all my love, Rosa. Elon looked up to find Rosa watching him with peaceful eyes. You saved me in more ways than one, he said quietly. You saved yourself. I just kept the receipts. She smiled at her own joke, then grew serious. The Lighthouse Journal. It's not evidence. It's a diary. My thoughts watching you grow from a distance. Wishes for your future. Nothing you need for justice. Then why send me to get it? To show you how far you've come from that frightened little boy. To let you choose whether some stories need to be recovered, or if they're better left as echoes. Elon gathered the letters carefully, understanding finally that Rosa's real gift hadn't been evidence of his father's crimes. It had been evidence of his own character, documented across decades by someone who'd seen his potential when no one else could. I'm going to the lighthouse tomorrow, he said. Not for the journal. Just to stand where you stood, to complete the circle like you wanted. Rosa nodded, closing her eyes. Take someone with you, not for help climbing, for someone to witness the end of one story and the beginning of another. As Elon left her room that evening, Rosa called out softly, Remember, mi amor, the truth isn't in what you uncover. It's in what you choose to build with it. He turned back to see her smiling. the same smile she'd given a small boy with big dreams 40 years ago. Outside, the Pacific stretched toward the horizon. Tomorrow would bring the lighthouse. But tonight, Elon finally understood the real secret. Rosa had been protecting all these years. Not the truth about his father's crimes, but the truth about his own strength to rise above them. The call came at 4:17 a.m. Elon was already awake, going over lighthouse coordinates on his tablet, when his phone rang. "Mr. Musk, I'm sorry to wake you. This is Dr. Chen." He knew before she said the words. The stillness in her voice told him everything. Rosa passed peacefully in her sleep. Around 3:30 a.m., she was smiling. Elon sat in darkness, the phone heavy in his hand. No tears came, just a deep, spreading quiet that filled spaces he hadn't known Rosa occupied in his life. "I'll be there in an hour." "Of course." "And Mr. Musk, there's something she left for you." Rosa lay in her bed as if sleeping, hands folded over a small wrapped package. The nurses had already begun their quiet procedures, but paused when Elon arrived. He unwrapped the package carefully. Inside was the silver locket she'd given him as a child, polished to a mirror shine. A note attached read simply, "For the lighthouse. You'll know what to do." Rosa, Dr. Chen, approached gently. "She spent yesterday writing letters. For your children, your mother, Detective Modus. Said she wanted to say goodbye properly this time." "Was she in pain?" "No. If anything, she seemed relieved, like she'd completed something important." Elon held the locket, thumb tracing its familiar surface. She died, knowing everything was finally done. All the secrets shared, all the evidence preserved. More than that, Dr. Chen said, she died knowing you understood why she kept them. 3 days later, a small gathering assembled at Seawind's garden. Not a funeral. Rosa had been clear about that. A celebration of truth-telling, her final instructions had specified. Detective David Modis flew in from Cape Town. Elena brought other residents who'd known Rosa. Elon's mother and children came. Even some Tesla and SpaceX employees who'd heard her story attended. "Rosa Martinez taught me that witnessing isn't passive," Modis said during the ceremony. "It's a choice to remember, document, and act." Elena read portions of Rosa's letters aloud. Stories about teaching Spanish through cooking, how she'd once convinced a teenage Elon to apologize to a neighbor boy he'd insulted. The way she'd sneak him extra dessert after particularly difficult days with his father. She believed in building futures, not punishing pasts, Elena concluded. After the ceremony, Elon announced the first recipients of the Rosa Martinez STEM Education Fund. 3 grandchildren of the Masango brothers, all studying engineering at South African universities. Rosa understood that the best justice is opportunity, he said, creating chances for the next generation to thrive where previous ones were denied. A week after the ceremony, Elon finally made the trip to Slangkop Lighthouse. His mother insisted on joining him, despite the journey's difficulty. Rosa was right about everything, May said during the flight to Cape Town, but especially about not going alone. They climbed the lighthouse stairs together, 93 steps to the 3rd row from the top. The loose stone came free easily, revealing a metal container wrapped in plastic. Inside wasn't a journal, but a single sheet of paper, covered in Rosa's handwriting. "If you're reading this, I'm gone. That's okay. I'm ready." This lighthouse kept sailors safe for a century. That's all I ever wanted to do. Keep my favorite sailors safe while he found his way home. The real evidence was never in documents or recordings. It was in watching a boy choose kindness over cruelty, curiosity over control, honesty over secrecy. Your father buried truth to hide crimes. You uncover truth to build better systems. That difference defines everything. No more secrets now. Just memories and the future you're building. PKS. There's one more thing buried here. 12 steps down from this spot, facing the ocean. Written for your children. Because every family needs stories worth keeping. Love always, Rosa. 12 steps down, they found another container. Inside, dozens of children's stories written in Spanish and English, hand-illustrated by Rosa decades ago. Tales of brave engineers who helped people, of explorers who shared discoveries, of children who changed the world by asking better questions. She wrote these for our Sunday visits, Elon realized, for when my kids were ready to hear them. 6 months passed. The Rosa Martinez Children's Center opened at Tesla's Austin factory, on-site childcare for employees, especially single parents. The education fund had grown to $10 million, supporting engineering students across 3 continents. Elon kept Sunday mornings sacred, visiting the garden at Seawind where Rosa had sat. Sometimes with his children, teaching them the Spanish songs she'd taught him. Sometimes alone, reviewing her letters, absorbing lessons about truth and patience. Detective Modis launched a truth commission using Rosa's evidence, not prosecuting aged criminals, but documenting histories that families had never known. The memorial website grew into a resource center, helping people search for lost relatives, understand historical injustices, find closure through knowledge. On the first anniversary of Rosa's death, Elon received an unexpected package. Inside, a photo of a young woman in graduation robes holding a diploma in mechanical engineering. The letter read, "Mr. Musk, you don't know me, but I'm Maria Masango's granddaughter. Because of the truth you helped expose and the fund you created, I just graduated with highest honors. My thesis was on sustainable mining practices, making sure what happened to my family never happens again. My grandmother finally knows what happened to her husband and brothers. She cried reading the truth, but she also said Rosa was right. Knowledge brings peace, even when it's painful. Thank you for completing what Rosa started, for turning tragedy into opportunity. Sincerely, Nkosi Masango." Elon kept the photo on his desk, next to Rosa's silver locket, and a small frame containing her final note from the lighthouse. During company meetings now, when discussions grew heated or ethical dilemmas arose, he'd sometimes pause and ask, what would Rosa do? The answer was always the same. Tell the truth. Protect the vulnerable. Build something better. The third journal remained in the lighthouse, its secrets no longer needed. Rosa's real legacy lived in the systems he built, the students he supported, the families who finally understood their histories. Every SpaceX launch carried a small token, a fragment of Rosa's silver locket, ensuring her dream of reaching the stars traveled beyond Earth. Every Tesla rolled off production lines with a subtle dedication etched into the frame. For Rosa, who taught us to see clearly, time moved forward, but Elon maintained the traditions Rosa had established. Sunday morning Spanish lessons, weekly calls with Detective Modis, monthly updates on scholarship recipients, annual visits to the lighthouse, watching sunset from the spot where Rosa had buried truth 4 decades ago. He never forgot her final lesson. The greatest secret wasn't what darkness you escaped, but what light you chose to shine. On quiet evenings at his desk, surrounded by blueprints for Mars colonies and sustainable energy systems, Elon would sometimes hear Rosa's voice, not in memory, but in the questions he asked himself before every decision. Who does this protect? Who does this lift up? What truth does this serve? And then, like an echo from childhood, the gentle reminder, remember, mi amor, you were always meant for more than just surviving. You were meant to help others thrive. The future Rosa had protected was now actively being built, not despite the past's darkness, but illuminated by the truth she'd preserved for 40 years. Every day, in countless ways large and small, Elon honored her memory by choosing transparency over secrecy, collaboration over control, hope over fear. The lighthouse stood eternal on the South African coast, its beam warning ships of hidden dangers. But for one man, it had become a monument to truth-telling, to the power of documenting difficult realities, and to the transformative possibility of sharing them with someone strong enough to act. Rosa's mission was complete. The truth had finally found its way home. Where are you listening from? Drop your location in the comments below. If you found this story as moving as I hope, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories, like this one. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and family, because spreading kindness and awareness is how we make the world a little bit better, one story at a time. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, keep believing in the power of truth and the impact one person can make.